physics equation that would be better for mobiles. Like, you wake up and you say, I have an awesome game idea, or I'm an artist and I want to make an art installation where I use Elite Motion to like make things dance across a projector and things like that. And you really should just have to focus on that. And we come with a pretty big community, which I'll talk about later. So what is Unity? We're a multi-platform engine. We're also a multi-platform toolchain. You can use us on both Mac and Windows. We are a 2D and 3D solution. We also don't, just like we preach, like don't focus on what you're not good on, we don't do that either. So we use like PhysX for physics system, Mono for scripting, Beast for lighting, Admob, audio rendering, etc. But when you use Unity, you don't have to worry about that stuff. You just get the benefit of these people who are spending time making the best audio rendering software out there. We use it, and then you use Unity, just get that. Where is Unity? So when I say cross-platform, I mean cross-platform. We're in all those places. We only have 2 hours, so I won't list them. But and there's even more. We are on like some custom smart TVs and things like that. So pretty much anywhere that you want a interactive experience, 2D or 3D, Unity can get it there for you. One of our biggest assets, our mission statement, is to democratize game development. What that drives every decision we make, and what that means is that we want to make it so that anybody with a game idea can make a game. If they're an artist, they can make a game. If they're a programmer, they can make a game. If there's somebody who doesn't do anything but like have access to a computer, I guess, can make a game if they want to make a game. It also means that we want to make it affordable for everybody. So we have a free product, so anybody can make a game, and then we also have a pro product, and we try to make it so that those that can't afford it help us fund our free version. We have 450,000 monthly active sessions that equate to over 5 million monthly hours of creation in Unity, which we're pretty proud of. And a survey of Develop Magazine in 2012 reported that 53% of mobile developers reported using Unity in some fashion, whether it was to prototype something, whether it was just to get cross-platform, but they were using us. We also provide extensive support, and the first options are all community run. Like, our community is very active. We have over 2 million registered users. We have very active forums and answers, which is like Stack Overflow, Wiki, which we host, but is community run, and it's just a place where people put scripts online. So if you don't code, like it's one of the initiatives that we support, because if you don't know how to code, but you want to be able to rotate something, you can just look up mouse rotate and find a script and copy and paste. And we have a lot of user groups, much like this one, specifically for Unity, in San Francisco, South Bay, all over the place. We have free support, so anybody can email support@unity3d.com and you'll get an answer. We also have various other support services. There are a ton of books, there are a ton of video websites, everywhere where you can learn Unity. Half my job is, because it's such a big product, is to be like, oh, Unity, how do I do this? And it's there. But we also launched learn.unity3d.com back in March, and we have example projects, and we've got about somewhere in the vicinity of 50 videos, and we're always adding more. Video tutorials, 5 to 10 minutes long each, that you can step-by-step go through and make the products or the projects that we provide for you, and it's a great way to learn. We also created the Asset Store, which leverages our community's, I don't normally give presentations, so I say a lot, just so you know. So the Asset Store we built because there's so many people, and we wanted them to be able to help each other. And they were doing it in our forums, and we're like, well, if somebody posts a script in a forum, if they update it, then it's going to be lost in a thread, and so we wanted a way for them to be able to just help each other. So in the Asset Store, it's inside the editor, so anyone can just open up a window in the editor and say, I need a tree. And they'll get a whole big list of trees, and some of them are free, some of them are more expensive. The creator can put it in there however they want, but the thing is, like, you can spend like $65 and get like a complete starter kit for something. You can spend $0 and get all the assets you'd ever need for a game, and everything you get from the Asset Store is completely license free. We have had many people actually now growing every day actually quit their day job and just sell things on the asset store. So if you build something yourself for your game project, you can go ahead, as long as you're not like married to it, you can go ahead and decide to sell it. And we've had people who quit their jobs just to sell Unity plugins. And lastly, before we jump together, let's talk about games. There's no mathematical way we could probably guess how many games are out there using Unity, but there are a lot of them, and there are a lot of good ones. Temple Run's a good one. It was originally a native app on iOS. They looked to port it to other platforms, so the gentleman they brought on to do that ported it to Unity. And now, not only do you get Android, they got all of the other platforms, and now all Temple Runs are Unity. We will simulate you. Very popular, well-known games, Bad Piggies. Ski Safari is a great story. They started off as a Flash product, and they won our game jam. When we launch new platforms, we usually do a contest to say, hey, build a game for it and see how it does. They won. They used the money that we gave them to port it to iOS and made millions of dollars. Award-winning games, last year's Game of the Year on the App Store. But we're also in, like as I mentioned before, art installations, signage, medical visualization, you name it, military simulation. Cool. All right. So no questions yet. I'm going to jump into the, unless you have a question about Unity as like a business entity, otherwise I'll jump into how to use it. Sweet. All right. I'm not to do much of this one-handed, so it might slow me down. Quick show of hands, who here actually makes games? Who here makes 3D or interactive content? Cool. Anybody not make games that use Unity for that? No? All right. Unfortunately, I'm a game maker, so we're going to make a game, but like I said, you can make anything you want. Really quickly, I'm just going to show you the game that I'm going to attempt to make here in the next hour or so. It's a simple first-person shooter. It makes annoying sounds when you shoot. It's got a robot that will follow me, and then dies when I shoot him. Cool. So just so you guys know what I'm doing up here, it's a little bit blurry, but that's okay. You guys will trust me when I say things are named certain things. It's not the important part. All right. Cool. So I'm gonna go over some basics, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty. Select something cool. Awesome. All right, so the first part I'm going to talk about is just the kind of general layout. In the middle here we have our project editor, or project view. This is literally literally what the assets look like on disk. You can go into your project folder, find your assets folder, and it will look exactly like this. So this is everything that you need to make your project. You'll do all your moving around and reorganizing and renaming inside Unity because you can do that. You can at any time rename any asset, and we track everything under the hood for you. Right to the left of that is our hierarchy view. That is a representation of everything that is inside of what we call our scene. And our scene view is the upper left view. And this is where I can go ahead and grab my robot. I can scale them up and make them giants. I can do that before I mess it up. I can move them around. I can place them. I can look from any angle I want, isometric, perspective, you name it. Cool. And this is where you kind of just piece all everything together. Right below that, as you saw at the beginning here, is our, it is technical difficulty day, is our game view. We try to make the game view as 99% accurate as we possibly can for the target device. Our philosophy being that you're going to build your game, about 90% of it, here in the editor, and you're just going to hit play and start playing, try it out. We can live edit certain values, so if I don't maximize that and select the robot, hit play, I'll explain why it's fuchsia in a minute. I could say something like, oh, I want to make a speed like really slow, and then come back here, move away from him, and he's walking a little bit slower, etc. But then all those changes go away once I stop playing, and we do that because play mode is specifically there for just tweaking and testing. And then, so I have set it up so it turns pink, so I don't ever forget that I'm in play mode and make changes that I want to keep. Cool, so now the most important part of our editor. Over here on the right, far right, is the inspector. We're a component-based engine, which means that everything in the game, everything you see, a bunch of stuff you don't see, are just objects, and they have components that give them some sort of behavior. So in this case, I have the robot selected. I'm going to zoom in on him, even though you probably can't see him. He has, every object will have a transform with a position, rotation, etc. We have an animator, and guess what that does? Capsule collider, so he can interact with physics. A nav mesh agent, which allows him to follow me, etc. Cool. So from that, this is what a fully fledged out project. This is just our little sample training, but I'm going to just go ahead and say new project and start from scratch. I am going to use some of the resources that we provide for everyone free of charge, a character controller, and I might get the skyboxes later. I'm going to say create. I don't want to save any of my changes. Awesome. I'm just getting set up for later where I reload here. Cool, so here is exactly what we just saw, and I'm completely empty. So the first thing I want to do is run around. So I'm going to go to game object, create other, and we provide a bunch of template objects for you for white boxing and such. I'm just going to create a plane, and then I'm going to use one of our standard assets. Like I said, we want to make it so that anybody can build a game without having to code a bunch. So we recognize certain archetypes of games that get made, and we provide as much as we can to allow you to do that. So I'm just going to go to my character controllers and grab my first person controller and drag it in here. And there we go. And if I hit play, I fall through, of course. So what that is happening is, since I'm already intersecting with the ground, the collision never happens because it's already happened and we don't react to it. But now if I hit play, I have my game. I can run around, I can jump, I can fall off the world. It's standard first-person controller shooting mechanics. I'll get the hang of this by an hour, I'm sure. And that's how fast it was. I think even with me talking and having one hand, it took me about 30 seconds to get controls, gameplay. So obviously this isn't shippable yet. So let's change that. First thing I'm going to do is add a light. So I'm just going to game object, create other directional light. For those of you who don't know, a directional light is just think of it as an infinite plane. That light comes from a direction that doesn't have a specific source. I'll make it a little bit yellower, just to make it a little bit sunny. And then I'm going to tell my directional light to cast some hard shadows, and I need to tell my first person controller to cast shadows. And now I can move around. I have shadows on the ground. Still not shippable, so let's continue. I'm just going to go to my desktop. So here's a pretty difficult to master part of our engine. I need to get some assets into it. You're going to do this a lot. It can be very confusing, so please pay attention. So I'm just going to bring in a texture because it's pretty simple. So to start off with, it's a three-step process. I need to, we're going to use this sand texture here. I need to click, drag, and release. Everyone get that? I can do it again. And then an equally difficult process to apply it to anything is I need to click, drag, and release. And now my game is up each. I'm gonna go ahead and, since you guys aren't following along, I'm not gonna bother with any kind of like keyboard shortcuts or anything like that, because, unless you guys ask later. I'm just gonna scale up my grounds. I have a nice big thing to run around on. All right, so cool. I have an infinitely large beach. Who doesn't want one of those? I mean, we Beach Simulator 2013. Let's sell it. Cool. So get some games. So let's get some objects to interact with. So the first thing I want to bring in is just a simple platform. And actually, you know what? I'm going to skip that part just so I have more time for questions later, because okay. I'm going to bring in my wall. And for my wall, I'm going to need to bring in my texture first. And then I'm going to bring in my FBX. So we support pretty much any major platform that can get to an FBX format. It's a very portable format. So if your asset creation tool can create FBXs, you can get into Unity. Grab my wall. I just want to say, this is very difficult. I'm doing this one-handed, by the way. I probably grabbed the wrong texture, which is why this is not there. So I'm just going to click and drag, and now I have my texture, and I did draw the wrong one. Pretend that's prettier, because it usually is when Carl does this. Cool, so I'm going to bring in a wall, lift it up, rotate it, focus on it. Bring in a wall, move it around, maybe create another wall, and start creating like little maze things, and then duplicate, move it around. So pretend I have a bunch of walls. The key here is that, can everyone hear me if I just talk? Is that too bad? No. Can you hear me in the back? No? I'm getting, okay. No, they need to hear me. All right. So what we need to do here is, when you build a game, you need to have everything flush. Otherwise light seeps in and then you look like you're a crappy game. Oh, I didn't quite get it, so let's move over. All right, so that looks about good. And now there won't be a light seep. I'm just kidding, that's really difficult and you would drive yourself insane. So what we have is a quick little tool. If I hold down the V key, allows me to grab any vertex and snap it to any other vertex. Cool, I can now multi-select, duplicate both those. Bring it over, switch to rotate. I can hold down Control, and now I'm rotating at 15-degree increments, which is customizable. So I can find a nice, easy thing. I can vertex snap that, and I could build a whole big level. But obviously, we don't have time for building a whole big level. So I'm going to talk about a thing we have called prefabs. Prefabs let us save lots and lots of time. So first thing I might do is I'm going to group all these objects by creating an empty parent object. I'm going to call it walls. And I'll select these bad boys. I'm just going to drag them under my, where did it go? Did I just not name it walls? Where did it go? Game object, did not name it walls. Walls. Oops. So all I do is drag those walls here. So now I have them as one single object. I can move them around. Again, I can duplicate them all. But now let's say I have a duplicate of this. And I move it around over here. And these are everywhere in the level. And my evil art director or myself decides that those look too rigid and we want some kind of distinction and this randomness, and so I'm going to scale this one up and maybe this one down a little bit or make it wider or something, who knows. And I want to make this change. Well, now I have to find every instance of these walls in there and make that same change. And that seems like it's a big pain in the butt. So what I'm going to do instead is go ahead and make a prefab out of this. And now what a prefab is I'm taking this structure. In this case, I just have a parent object with 4 walls under it. And I'm going to save that off. By the way, like this layout is like everything is completely dockable wherever you want, and everything in here is actually using our engine, so you can customize all of this through scripting. But to create a prefab, all I need to do is drag my walls into, did I really put all that stuff in the standard assets? Smart. All I have to do is drag my walls into my project folder. And what I did was I said, okay, take these 4 walls and make them basically a prototype. And now that prototype can be used later to go ahead and just make a bunch of instances. So now I can just drag walls in all day, all night, and have a good time. I know, game development is awesome. So now I have that same predicament though, we need to make a change, and it's really annoying to go through and change all these. But the power of prefabs is now I can go through here and say, okay, well let's select the prefab. I'm going to take this one, I'm going to scale it up. This one, I'm going to scale it down. It'll look, and now up in the upper right, you won't be able to see it in the back, but we have a menu for prefabs that says select, revert, apply. Revert will just undo all my changes back to my prototype, but apply will apply all my changes immediately up to my prototype. So if we look now, that change I made is made to all the instances of it. Huge time saver. And then another thing, Corey. That's great, Corey. Get to making a fun level. So I'm going to do that. Using the power of prefabs and another system we call packages, we basically took that thing and we saved it off as its own file. So I'm going to bring this in, and this allows you to share assets in between your projects. So in this case, we had someone who's a much better artist than me come and build a level for me to come to you guys. I get his thing, I say import, give it a second, maybe 2. Cool. So now that I have my level, I can just go grab it. Boom. Cool. So just because I'm an engineer and these things bother me and I have a little bit of OCD, I have to zero these out. So cool. Now I have that full level, which means you can make really easily make art assets that you can use across projects. You can make setups. Everything that you've seen, like my first-person controller, I could have built from scratch right here, but all we did was we made it a prefab, and then we put that prefab in a package and gave it to you guys. So there's nothing magical. For instance, you can come in here and say, oh, I have the main camera, I have this graphics, which is the mesh part of it, and I have a bunch of scripts that allow it to work as a first-person shooter. Every asset you'll ever get from Unity is completely free, by the way. Do what you will. I have, in fact, seen the demo I'm making published on the Android store. It's not making any money. So I'm going to just move my homie here to give myself some room. Beans. Cool, so now I can hit play. I can run around. I have an awesome level. The lighting's not so good, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and say project settings, graphics. Oh, that's not the right one. I don't normally do this. Which one am I looking at? No, that's not it. Fine. I'm just going to move on. I'm going to make my directional light a little bit brighter, just so we are actually on the beach. Cool. So it's really simple to make your art assets, share them between projects. So now let's make something that's actually fun to play instead of just a walking experience. So I'm gonna start shooting stuff. So I'm gonna go grab my bazooka. How many get to say bazooka every day at work? So again, I need to grab my bazooka color map, my normal map, and where's my ammo? I think it's shell. Cool. And then I just need to grab my 3D models, grab my bazooka. What it's asking me here is it's saying that, hey, we recognize that you put normal in the name. Do you want to fix that now? And say yes. And I also need my bazooka ammo. It's asking me the same thing as now. Sweet. So I have a bazooka. I'm going to bring it into my game. I can't see it, so I'm going to hit F to frame it and move it up. There we go. And I noticed that it's super teeny tiny. Like, it's not even the size of my finger. So all I need to do is, in my bazooka, is there's a scale factor. And because the modeler had a different scale than what we use in Unity, which is 1 meter per 1 unit, it shows up in a very small space. So all I need to do to change that is say, apply. And now I have a normal sized human bazooka. It's just what the world needs more of. I'm going to place this right up here. I'm going to put it back over here. And what I'm actually going to look at this time is, instead of placing stuff, normally you do a lot of placement up in the scene view, but I'm actually using my game view here because I want to actually feel exactly what they're going to use. Because if I move it too far over, I get to near a clipping plane, and I want to feel be able to tell what the player is going to look like when we're going to shoot my bazooka. So it doesn't really matter, so I'm just going to leave it there. So then I'm going to hit play and see if I can shoot this thing. And we're not quite that easy. The bazooka just kind of floats there in the air. A couple more steps, don't worry. All I need to do is mount my bazooka to my main camera. So if I move my camera here, so now my bazooka goes, it's a child of, so it goes wherever my main camera goes. So now if I hit play and I look around, I guess for those of you in the back, I'll turn that on. Now if I look around, like a first-person shooter, it follows me around, and it does not shoot yet. Work it there. Cool. So the next thing we want to do is to be able to actually shoot it, or shoot something, not the bazooka. Why would you throw your bazooka away? I have my bazooka ammo here. I'm going to drag one in. Oop, in the wrong window. Drag in some ammo. Let me get out ISO. It's way in the back, so I'm just going to slide it forward so we'll be able to see it. Cool. All right, you may have noticed that it is also teeny tiny, so which makes sense because it was designed to shoot out of this gun. So I just need to apply that. Whenever I have a asset selected from the project folder, which remember is an actual physical asset on disk, your inspector shows you what we call import settings. And those import settings, whenever you change that file, will re-import with these settings. And we can do all sorts of stuff, and it changes a lot on the different types of things. So in this case, we can generate things like light maps for lighting. We can try to optimize it more for gaming. Turn off read-write enabled, which is probably a good idea. In this case, I'm just changing the scale factor, so when I select my bazooka ammo, it looks somewhat regular size. In fact, I might even do that a little bit more since the screen is so small. Maybe I can see it. Let's just make it twice that size. Is it hot in here for anybody else? No? Yeah. Good. Don't make me feel alone, please. Cool, so I have a bazooka. I have something I can shoot. But how many people play games? A lot. So you may have noticed that you can't shoot infinitely. And if you did, bad things happen because performance reasons. Like if we just kept adding to the world, we'd be probably in the overpopulation problem that we're probably going to be in soon in real life. We try to educate on multiple levels here. Cool, so all I need to do is I need to add some custom behavior, like what do I want this bullet to do? And in this case, I want it to go away. And I'm going to cheat since I'm one-handed today. And we have some pre-made scripts. And this one is called the bullet remover. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that in. So we use mono quick aside, we use Mono as our scripting environment. That means you can write your code in C#, JavaScript, or a language called Boo, which we wrote, which is very much like Python. If I double click it anywhere, we ship with Mono Develop. It's a custom version of Mono Develop that has some of our own bug fixes. So when you download and install Unity from our website, you automatically get an IDE that you can debug with as well, if you're into that sort of thing. How many people here are programmers? All right, non-programmers? Wow, what do the rest of you do? Bad joke. All right, so this is a super simple script. It has one function on update. We automatically call update on any behavior every frame. So every frame, I didn't write this. If you're our programmer, I did not write this. Our non-programming evangelist wrote this, which is, and if you get that joke, you're a nerd like me. So every frame, we tell this object to destroy the game object, and in this case, the game object will just be the object this is placed on after 5 seconds. Cool. So following our pattern of really difficult processes, I just need to click and drag this on my bazooka ammo and hit play. Let's just see what happens. Ooh, oh no, we're gonna miss it. After 5 seconds, it goes away. Cool, so now I can be America and shoot lots of bullets. It's just what we need. But you notice the bullet is floating in the air, so we might want to change that. So what we need to do is we need to add some other components, and these ones are going to be ones that are built in for you. So I just click this Add Component button right over here. It's in the inspector. So if I just hit Add, first thing I want to do is have some physics. So it needs a rigid body. If I hit play, oop, now it fell. Let me show you that again. I always got to remember to come down here. It fell, but also fell through the world. So I'm missing more behavior that I need. Not a problem. Select it. Let's add a component and say physics. Let's go with a capsule collider. Go ahead and so we can see. You might not be able to see. Can everyone see the green circle that's around the bullet? There's a green outline, and that's the capsule collider. So what I need to do is reduce that radius down to a size that's about the right size for my my bullet here. So it's still a little bit tall, so I just need to change the height. Now, whenever you see a number in the editor, you can always click on the label. So for those of you that are in the back, I can't bring that up any higher. All right, I'm going to give up on that. All you have to do is click on a label, and I can show you up here. So in position, I can just grab X and just like move it around, which makes it really easy for anybody to say, okay, I want to move this value. Cool. So now if I hit play, my bullet falls to the ground. Awesome. It's good enough for now. I'm taking a few shortcuts just to I want to get to questions and just give you the idea. So now let's shoot this bad boy. In order to shoot it, I need someplace to shoot it from. In this case, we're going to shoot it from our bazooka, but we don't want to shoot it from the middle of the bazooka, because usually all you know about the bazooka is where it is in space, and it's usually the center of gravity for it is what most modelers will model around. And we want to shoot it out the front of the bazooka. So I am going to create something just for this bazooka, just like a random spot. So I'm going to create an empty game object. Like I said before, empty game objects, all game objects have a transform in position. So what I'm going to do here is say, go to my ISO view. I'm going to line this point up right at the beginning of my bazooka. I'll give you a little hint. I'm going to fire it out the front and along from this point. So I need to rotate it so that way it's kind of lined up the same way the bazooka is pointing. And I'm going to call this thing muzzle. Spelled correctly? Cool. So now I have this muzzle. It's lined up perfectly. But again, just like I needed to take my bazooka and mount it to my camera, I want this to follow around the front of my my bazooka. So all I need to do is parent that to the bazooka. Cool. So now, once I don't have it selected anymore, I have a problem. I can't actually select it again. It doesn't exist. So all I need to do, so the only way I can get to it is from my hierarchy, which again is the list. So if you ever lose anything, you just go through your list and I can type, muzzle and find it, and it'll highlight it for me, and I can just select it, which is super awesome and helpful. But I'm going to be more helpful. So up in our inspector, I can say, and this is in the upper right, I just need to select what we call a gizmo for it. In this case, I like green. And there now, I have an object that I can go ahead and select in the world whenever I need to. Does everyone have any questions so far?
How long did it take the artist to develop the level roughly?
To develop the level, probably not that long. Probably he's finicky, so probably like an hour or so, because he was just placing the parts. To actually model the parts and get good looking textures and things like that, probably took longer than the actual layout portion. That's just because he's a artist, so finicky. So yeah, I would say that the layout portion probably took him, 10, 15 minutes, and then he went through and he preset up a lot of things like there's a lot of work to like just add box collectors. So overall, I would say you could probably build this from scratch. If you already have the models modeled, in probably like an hour.